Zach, like before, was again keeping his foot in the starting position instead of actually bringing the ball and his foot with him at the same time. What he actually did very well was he's able to have that ball travel towards the net in an angled position. So instead of having the ball travel square or to the side of his body or straight in front, what this does is by having the ball travel in that angle, it's more direct towards the net. He's able to actually bring his foot behind the ball at a much more natural position, and he can generate more of a whipping action through the ball, which will give off much more power after the shot is taken. Okay, so what we saw from that is Zach's body positioning, his foot placement at the time, just before the strike, is very well placed. He has the ball right in the mid-center of the foot, which is where we want it. You can see that his knee positioning is already over top of the ball, so he's much more in line with the ball already. His body positioning is alright. It's still leaning back just a little bit, which is not the worst. The ball is still going to travel upwards, but he's still going to have a lot of power being generated through the ball. At the time of the strike, you can see Zach still has his head down, actually still looking downwards at the ball, which is really good to see. A lot of kids, especially at his age, will already be looking upwards towards the net. They'll lose sight of the actual ball, which will result in the ball being kicked not where they want it to be, much more likely on top of the ball, which will result in it staying low and down or just on the ground. So something that's very common with Zach is he tends to not have a fall through after his shot. Instead, it's more of a punched or a chopped shot, which results in him just taking a step but leaving his plantar foot already still in the same position. What we want to see is a little bit of air time after his shot, so Zach should almost be landing in the yellow circle with the air time. His body should be carrying enough momentum to make him travel forward in the direction of the net after his shot, not already being just one step in front. So from this shot, what we actually see is his first touch was a little better. He got it out of his feet. You can already see that he is traveling with the ball. He already has his foot in the movement. What happened with his touch is the ball, instead of continually going forward, the ball has actually moved and is going backwards on him, which results in him already having to take his momentum backwards away from the ball, which will result in less power going through. From here, just before the time of strike, you can already see the ball is in front of his foot. His knee positioning is over top. His body positioning is a bit better. It is forward. We'd ideally still want to see his head maybe drop more into this blue area, so he really has his body positioning over top of the ball to carry his momentum forward straight towards the net. But because the ball is already in front of his foot placement, it's going to result in the ball traveling upwards in the trajectory it's already taking, because his foot movement will already be going upwards instead of straight on where we'd want it. This third shot, again, he gets the ball out. He gets it into the angle where you'd want it to be. He has it going forwards. His body positioning on his run-up is already leaning forward, which you'd ideally want. With the body already leaning forward, you have much more tendency to keep it that way. This is probably one of Zach's better strikes on the ball. At the time placement, his foot already decided in the midsole of the foot. His body positioning is forward on the ball, which has been better than before. He's going for a much harder shot. As you can tell, the result of his foot is going to come through at more of a whipping angle, which will generate a lot more power, and he's going to have a bit better of a follow through. However, what we see Zach in this instance is we see Zach's back to the ball, well, away from the camera, pretty much, and which would result in that also traveling away from the net. So in the whip, he moved through, but instead he stopped his momentum going through the ball by jerking his foot like he did. Bring his back just a little bit. So as we mentioned before, Zach's tendency is to not follow through. And here again, you see Zach trying to stop his follow through, which will result in him again facing away from the ball and from the net. Where we'd want again is the little air time between and right after the shot, so we should see Zach land more inside this area. Because of that, he just spins away, less momentum traveling through the ball. So finally we're on to the side view for Ross comparing to Zach. So for his first touch, we do see it drop back into that starting position, which is what we don't want, as we won't have that momentum going through the ball in the control. Which we see here because of what I mentioned about Zach taking more steps to get to the ball. We see Ross taking 1, 2, 3 steps towards the ball this time, instead of before on this other angle we saw him taking usually 1 step before being able to release the ball for a shot. At the time, just before the shot, what we see, just taking it back just a little bit, as I mentioned before, with Ross, he's able to get his body well over the ball already. As you can see from his head, his direction is already straight on towards the ball. He already knows where he wants to place it. That way he's already focusing on the technique that is going to be required for the shot. So his head's already down, meaning his body positioning is already going to be down, which will result in the ball being driven lower and at a better speed. This time what we see from Ross is he's a lot more upright than usual. This is usually, so in doing so, having to reach for the ball, he's now having to take a larger step, resulting he's going to need more balance, so he's probably already off balance, which means his body positioning is going to be much more upright resulting in most of the momentum being upwards. His foot positioning is pretty good. He landed just a little bit in front, but his knee is well over the ball, as what we want to see. And for his strike, you can see that he's hitting the ball with his laces. So for a lace shot, that's more power, meaning that your hips must be parallel to the goal. And you want to make contact probably about midway up the ball, or just a little lower from midway. And again, we see a nice follow through from this one. His starting position being in the red, and as you can see his air time actually happens, so that split second just after the shot, and is landed much further in front, meaning that all momentum was exerted straight on towards the goal after his shot for more power. So this is a good example of the first touch problem that Zach had. This time we see Ross actually getting his foot in front of him at the time that he's taking his touch, so he already has his momentum going towards the ball. From Zach, we saw his back foot already there, so the reason why we see Ross taking less steps towards the ball is his first touch is more already his first step towards it. So we see that longer stride from Ross of being able to get there ahead of the ball and already be releasing the ball after his first real step, after his first touch. What we don't like here is his foot placement. It's way too in front of the ball. This is going to result in more of a drag shot, as his knee is also in front of the ball. So his knee is going to have to drop, and he's going to probably hit the ball more on a downward angle, probably on the top half of the ball, resulting in the ball staying a little bit lower than what he would like. And no follow through, so his foot is still in this stationary position to where we'd want to see that force really going through with the shot, taking him up into the air. A lot of time what we see with players is if they are trying to stop their follow through, which you can see with Ross here, is his hips are now to the side of the net, so his whole body is sideways towards the net, meaning that because he had to stop his body, he's done more of a whipping action, which will count to how the ball is actually struck. The ball also go more on of a whipping action instead of being driven straight on at the goal. For his final shot, what we see with his first touch is more of a dropped back first touch, not what we want to see from him. And again, what we see with that is he's already taken two touches. So not two touches, he's already taken two steps to get towards the ball. And body positioning, because he's already in front of the ball, it's much more upright. He's reached too far, and again, it's going to drag his shot lower along the ground. But this time what we see with Ross, just from the angle of his foot going towards the ball, it's much more of a straight laces contact. So let's get it up just to the contact. So there. And what we see here now is what I was talking about, the hips. For a straighter shot, his hips must be straight towards the net, which we can see from him. A lot of times Zach, we saw he was turning and hitting the ball from an angle, resulting in more of that whipping action, which we see now here from Ross. He's done the whipping action, which we don't want to see. So he's stopping his follow through, leaving the momentum behind, and not getting the air time that we'd want to see right after the shot.